everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. My name is Dan Murphy. With me always is the amazing Stu Hardy and the fantastic Derek Percent. I switched it up, gentlemen. We're going to mix things up from now on. We're moving up. Guys, I am still buzzing from the weekend of rugby. You know, we had the Super Saturday. We had Ireland pull up the big win, and we had the return of Major League Rugby. And I'm sorry, Stu, but Wales it felt like the Grand Slam was in their grasp, and of course the French decided to French. And
the Welsh decided to Welsh. So
yeah, I mean, whichever way you want to look at it. But
and it's the championship is still Wales's to lose, and it's France not only need to get the bonus point, they need to get win by 20 or something as well.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I'm just saying that it is Wales's to lose at this point.
Who do France play next? Remind me.
Scotland.
Oh, Stu.
Because that game was...
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry, Stu.
I know.
No, I think Scotland is going to pull out a win. I think they're going to pull out a W. I'm excited to see it. Well, guys, before we hop into what was a crazy weekend of Major League Rugby, we've got some late-breaking news that's kind of happened in the last couple days. And we also want to go over the new Major League Rugby rules because those kind of dropped right after we recorded. So let's start with the latest news. And this has, even though it's an international event, this has some ties to North America. So we're going to start with the Lions Tour has been announced that it will take place in South Africa. Whether or not there's going to be fans there, that's still kind of up in the air. But the big story about this, and it was kind of, it's been kind of tossed around in the media in England, is that the RFU is kind of under the impression that USA and Canada are going to come to them to do the England tour. And it sounds like our tour of North America might not even be happening in North America anymore. I want to hear you guys' thoughts about this, because if this is true, again, this is all drama and gossip, and we don't really have anything from the horse's mouth itself. How would you guys feel about the US and Canada possibly going to tour England instead of England coming to North America?
That's fine. I mean, it's what are they going? They're going to come play in Toronto in front of no fans, anyways. It's no fans here. Even where can you? I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
if they play the United States and Texas, if they play,
think about it. By August,
it's not even the real England though, because all their best players are going to be.
Yeah, so they're going to have Ellis Genge, Will Stewart.
No,
they're going to have
I'm not. I don't know. I'll believe any of these. Even the rumored USA is gonna play the Lions, or are they now if the tour is in South Africa, because that would involve them flying different places. I don't even know. I'm not even sure how that would work now. But it's I don't know. I feel like all this stuff sounds super cool or fun, or that it would be enjoyable, but I'm also kind of in the year of 2020 and then 2021, I'll believe it when it's officially, hey, we're playing on this day. This is the stadium. This is the time. This is where you can watch it. If it's in a place where you can buy tickets, here's the link to go buy tickets. But I feel until that,
hearing this from you, Derek, is really funny, because even if you look at Derek's pinned tweet, it's about how optimistic he was about rugby in 2021.
That tweet is aging like a bag of milk, man.
I know you were such an optimistic lad.
Yeah.
And now it's slowly chipping. I'm having this effect on you. I'm making you less optimistic about.
No, I hang out with you apparently way too much, Charlotte. For anybody wondering though, if you talk to Dan 6 times, probably 5 too many. So.
Wow. All right, Stu. It's just going to be you and me tonight, buddy. He's getting kicked out. Oh, wait, he's hosting the call. Never mind.
But I can go. I got the Snyder Cut's 4 hours. I can go for something.
Stu, you kind of tossed a fun idea in the chat about if Canada was going to tour, go play England in England, maybe they can do a little tour against some of the other European nations to kind of freshen themselves up for the qualifiers, because they don't really have anything lined. They don't have anything lined up right now. No one really has anything lined up right now from North America. So, but you had a little idea about like maybe getting some test matches while they were over in Europe before coming back.
Yeah, I think there may be the opportunity to think of, playing games against Georgia or against Spain, or even some lower tier nations like Germany, for example, or Portugal, just to get some game time under their belts before the eventual World Cup qualifiers, which will have to begin in at some point this year. Again, these haven't been confirmed. This was only just announced today. Mm-hmm. We're recording on the Tuesday, so that's the thing. We haven't even had the time to look into, do Spain have a tour planned for the mid-year test season, or do Germany, or so on and so forth. So that's it. It's just speculation at this moment. But I'd say, if you, unfortunately, even with like an England 15, which is like, we know it's not the full strength England side, but there will be some players, because obviously not everyone can go on the Lions tour. The idea will still be that it's going to be like damage limitation, especially since the US and Canada wouldn't have played any test rugby for more like about a year and a half now, because the last time they both played was in the Rugby World Cup. So
just insane. It's so crazy how long it's been.
I would say it would be the idea of like, play England in England as like the end of the tour, or it could be so like say England and Georgia are like the final 2 games to play. But I think it would at this point be like a damage limitation kind of model more than anything else. But the big question as well is, if this happens at the same time as like the Lions tour, or say just before the Lions have their test matches with South Africa, it's going to fall in like the final few months of Major League Rugby. And we know the impact playing for Canada in the ARC has had on the Arrows. And, obviously not the ideal start that the Toronto Arrows wanted for this MLR season. And those guys know that more than any other team, that sometimes you just got to, if you're going to make the playoffs, you have to win a certain amount of games, that they need to do that. And obviously having your best players the other side of the Atlantic wouldn't help in that matter. Now, to be fair, you'd also have some of the US teams without their starting choices as well. But there are more American clubs than there are Canadian clubs. So make of that.
Spread out a little bit.
Yeah. So that's the thing. This is just all speculation at the moment. It may even be a case of, maybe there's a third wave in Europe, and therefore it's just decided it's not worth it. So those are the big cautions to me, is that it's going to probably happen during the MLR season, and if it does happen, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, and this will be something that we will kind of continuously watch, because it's going to be an ever-evolving story, especially leading up into the World Cup qualifiers. Canada is going to need to play some type of rugby
on Canada playing England right now, because it was previously just like the USA playing like the Lions in South Africa, right? So like, why?
Well, the US were going to play South Africa, and they're going to play England. I don't think they're ever going to play the Lions.
But then, okay, so the US was going to do like a tour with Springboks and stuff. Well, how did Canada like land into this all of a sudden?
It was just
back at the start of 2020, the notion was that England was going to come to North America.
That was part of what like Bill Ballman.
Yeah.
All right, that doesn't mean anything now.
That was apparently that's why Rugby Canada put their vote in for Bill Beaumont.
Cool.
Is that he was going to
I think
make that tour happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm sitting at like, the one time as Dan said, I'll take the pessimistic view on something. It's just especially any test match that involves not playing the United States right now. Like even like the rumors and stuff that are kind of floating around. I guess it got confirmed that the Lions tour is going to go ahead, but like any other test like building up, like I will get excited for them and I will believe that they're happening when it's like an official thing.
You know, I kind of felt that about the MLR this week, and I'm like, I need to see boots on the pitch before I can be excited about some of these games.
Like even that, like the build up to the MLR season, it was like, okay, we had preseason games and stuff get canceled, and it was like, I mean, good on the league for getting to this point, like to actually be able, like, we're playing. That's an unbelievable achievement given this time. But it's like, I just feel like for a lot of like international sporting events, especially right now, I'm in full, like, I'll believe it. Like, I'll believe, like, the Olympics, I know are like, they're building the plans. They're going to have, I know we're probably going to talk a little bit about some Dubai sevens and stuff too. But it's like, yeah, like I'll believe all of like any international test rumor right now. To me, I'm just like, it's cool. Like, but it's like, when's it gonna like how, like, what are the logistics behind it and stuff? Like it's all, you know what I mean? Like I feel like right now in a COVID world, you're probably gonna prioritize like important games, like when you have to play the United States for the World Cup, like World Cup qualifier or whatever, as opposed to like, yeah, going to England for a game that might be nice for development, but in all reality means nothing.
So just for more background, Joe Harvey on Twitter at Joe Harvey 34, who has been a champion of MLR writing, he said that this came from an RFU call with the press, that the suggestion was the tour to the USA and Canada will take place in England. So again, it's going to be an ever evolving story, so we will continue to talk about it as we learn more.
I'm looking at that tweet now though, and like nowhere in that tweet does he say 2021. Anywhere in that tweet.
But that was when the proposed tour was supposed to happen.
2021.
That was when the tour was supposed to happen, was this summer, because it was supposed to coincide during the Lions tour.
Well, if it happens, I mean, it'll be cool. I wouldn't mind seeing Canada play England. I wouldn't mind seeing USA play some of the big names that have been there. But I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm holding out hope for anything. That's
all right. That's fair. Okay. Well, the next little bit of news that Derek kind of previewed to was that Canada, Rugby Canada, will be attending a sevens tournament in Dubai. It's an invitational seven, so it's not part of the seven series. It will be a high-performance competitive training camp, including 2 tournament weekends. So both the men and the women will be going. This will be their first competition for the men since that amazing Vancouver tournament, and for the women in Sydney. The tournaments will be played over back-to-back weekends, April the 2nd to the 3rd, and then the weekend after, the 8th to the 9th, at the Seven Stadium in Dubai. Kind of a slam dunk decision there. Both teams are traveling with an extended squad of players. The Dubai tournament will be an opportunity for all players to get match play after months of training under COVID protocols in Langford. That extended squad makes a lot of sense. You got to now start figuring out who are you bringing to the Olympics, and like now. So hopefully it'll be streamed. We'll be able to see lots of bodies on the field, and hopefully Canada will have lots of fun. You guys excited to see sevens again? Because this is, it kind of just was, again, one of those things. We haven't seen any sevens action from Canada in a long time. So I feel like this is hopefully another step towards getting back to normal in terms of the rugby world.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Like you said, it'd be great to this is going to be such a weird year, I think, for them to, like, the build up to the Olympics, and then you're going to have to play the biggest sporting event in the world with, I guess, are they allowing fans in Japan? No, it's just they're not allowing they're just only local Japanese fans.
Only Japanese fans,
or people that already live in Japan.
Yeah,
or something, right?
Well, you have to be a resident of Japan to go.
Okay. Yeah, so you can go. Okay, cool. So there's gonna be like some
fans. Yeah.
That's gonna be like, that would be weird, man. I don't know if I'm prepared for like an Olympics with like no crowd. That's gonna be bizarre. But I guess like as long if some people can go or whatever, that's cool too. But yeah, I think for like as far as like the rugby element goes, is like you said, like when was the last, like Canada hasn't played since Vancouver. The women's team, I don't think they had, I think their last tournament was like the week before Vancouver, if I recall correctly, or
Sydney.
something. Yeah, Sydney with, but what that was like timeline, was that the same weekend as Vancouver for the men, or was that like the weekend?
No, it was before.
Yeah. Um, so like I mean I think it's like, yeah, like you have to get back on the pitch. Like it's like I mean, you got the biggest tournament that you can play in the sport coming up. So I'm excited for that. The squads both look good. Some vets, some young up and coming talent on both teams. Like yeah, so I mean, I'm excited, and like you said, it's like I think no, like wins and no matter what, like as far as wins and losses for this tournament here, it's like you gotta make sure everybody gets into a game, gets like proper game time and stuff. I think, because I mean, I think what we kind of saw in Major League Rugby this weekend too is it's like you can do like all the intra squad and scrimmages and stuff you want. There's no real substitute for like an actual game. And like I think you want to probably be at the peak of your performance going into the Olympics. So this is step one. I'm super excited for it. It is confirmed, so I feel like I'm validated and super excited for it. Yeah, so it's like that's what I want to see from everything else is like get the unions tweeting out that it's happening, then I'll be fired up. But like it looks good. A lot of great teams go into the tournament too, so it should be an entertaining one for everybody.
Yeah, I think we've been so occupied with the return of like MLR and like the Six Nations and stuff like that. It's easy to forget that it was almost a year ago as well that the sevens just stopped. And I mean, we've had the Rugby Tens tournament in Bermuda, which was interesting with their like different rules, and it maybe took like a game or two to adjust and get them down. But sevens has always been like a good weekend thing to watch. There are multiple games, different strategy of like how teams can make it through to the cup. There's obviously also things like the shield and plates in the World Seven Series. But obviously with like the Olympics, because I keep forgetting that there's so much going on this year. There's the Olympics, there's the Euros, there's the Lions Tour as well. There's just all the sport from last year has now been packed into this year, and it's just, I'm gonna have to have like 7 different screens on just to keep up with all the sport going on.
That's how I felt this weekend.
But yeah, and now, as I said, this is more of a high performance training camp with 2 competitive weekends on it. I think that's a good setup to have, especially because the Olympics is over 3 days for each gender tournament. So the men's will be first and then followed by the women's on those 3 consecutive days. So I guess having weekend tournaments, that's it. They've only said weekend tournaments. They don't say they're like 3-day weekends or just the Saturday and Sunday. But honestly, anything that can get you ready for the Olympics is going to be fantastic. Because the 7 series, the World Series, starts. It's really strange this year because it starts in, I think, like May, and then it has to stop for the Olympics, obviously. And then it's back in Vancouver in September, which hopefully by that time more vaccines will have been distributed and they'll have an attendance there, which would be great to see. Ultimately, I'm just looking forward to it, and I'm with you, Dan. As long as we can watch it, that's the most important thing for me.
And I'm excited to see, who they bring, and all that stuff. The squad that they're bringing and stuff like that's always so exciting. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna move on because we need to talk about these new MLR rules. And here's what we're gonna do, guys. I'm gonna list them off, and then you're gonna tell me the one rule you do like, and the one rule you hate.
Just one?
Because I feel like just one.
Yeah,
You get
just
one from each. One you like, one you don't like. Okay, but let's go through them quickly. There's a new kick clock. Instead of 90 seconds, you have 60 seconds. There's a 7-point try. The 7 points will automatically be rewarded for any try scored directly under the posts. Scrum resets will have a limit of 2 per incident. The original one plus a reset for a collapse, penalty, or free kick. Scrum offsides. The offside line will be the feed line / channel of the scrum to allow for unintended access to the ball, the back of the scrum for the attacking team. 20-minute red cards, which really people have talked about this as being the orange card. A red card would lead to a player being sent off and the team goes down to 14 players for 20 minutes. And then after 20 minutes, the player can be replaced with another player on the bench. So I am going to ask Stu first. What is the new rule you like and what is the rule you don't like?
So the rule I like is the 60-second kick clock. I think kicks can usually take up a lot of time. I know,
especially if you're Johnny Sexton.
Absolutely. I know that in other leagues it's 90 seconds, but having that clock count down to like 60 seconds is great to watch, and it gives a bit of like drama to it. It's like, oh, you've only got this amount of time before you have to kick. And because I originally thought it would just be for conversions, but I then realized it was also for penalties as well, so I was chuffed by that. The one that I hate is probably the scrum resets, because, and this is actually an issue that I have with like all of these new laws that have been put in place, is there hasn't been enough time to explain what is within like the limit of what you can do. And I think the scrum reset, as shown during the Toronto Arrows game, with the idea of, oh, you can,
and the Utah,
so you only get one reset after collapse. After that, it's either a penalty or free kick.
Yeah. So yeah. I have a question about the resets, but like in my mind, say because we're going to talk about that penalty that the Arrows won on a scrum and they wanted to do another scrum and they couldn't.
Yeah.
Would that
is the specific rule we are talking about right now.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking about it, Derek. Give me a second. God. But would that next scrum that they call, should that not just be another incident? Right? Like that's to me how this rule should happen.
Yeah. See, like, I had that thought too, and then I was like, because I had that thought too of being like, because one, I agree with Stu. Like, I think the rules what we saw in the game with the Arrows, where Toronto had an upper hand on Atlanta in the scrum, and in Utah Austin too, where Utah had an upper hand on Austin in the scrum, and they were like, Utah was getting some penalties too, but they weren't really allowed to like use it, right? I think like that was kind of, and I think ultimately I think this rule, it kind of lets some teams that have bad scrums or are at the very least, if they don't have a bad scrum, are losing the scrum battle in the current game. I think it could kind of like let teams off the hook a little bit with that. And I think like I think I kind of like, I get what you're saying, Dan, because it's like, I think you should, if you get a penalty on that second scrum, I think you should be allowed to call for a scrum again, because it's like, if not, you're just taking an attacking weapon away from teams.
Yeah,
you're taking that option away. But at the same time, I'm like, right, like, because I was thinking, it's like, okay, yeah, do what I believe what you were kind of describing is, it's like, okay, the team A earned a penalty.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're going to now count this as a new scrum. The reset count, for lack of a better term, resets.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you can reset it once, and then another time it'll be a penalty. But then I'm just like, that's the same thing as having unlimited resets.
So then put a limit, put a cap at like,
right? Like, I don't. So it's like, but basically, I would just get rid of the rule again. Like,
yeah, like put a cap at like 2 incidents, and then they have to make a choice. I just feel like automatically taking that ability away to.
I think too, there was a scrum in the Utah Austin game. and they like the first scrum, Utah like wheels the scrum on Austin. The referee calls for it to be reset. And then the next scrum just kind of like I don't know if it was just like they were too far apart or they didn't bind properly, but it just like immediately goes down. Right. And the refs just kind of like, okay, Utah ball. Right.
Yeah.
It's like I can't make them set up for the scrum again. Right. So it was just kind of like it wasn't even like I'm not even sure if it was just like Utah. Like I guess maybe he gave Utah the penalty based on the fact that they were the dominant team in the previous scrum. But it was like I think you end up with refs. I think I think it puts refs in a bad situation where I think it's like it's gonna force them to call penalties on the second scrum, right? Like it forces like on something that maybe
or give them a free kick.
Yeah, but
depending on where.
I think that's the thing, though, is it forces the refs to make that decision.
It's forcing you have to make a decision to give someone
and then I think
possession, and if it's an iffy scrum where it was just the scrum just had to be reset, and if it's that second, part of the incident, then you're like, well, I have to give somebody possession now, and like, okay, you're giving it to the attacking team, like who's got the ball already, like it's strange. So I get that.
I think ultimately at the end of the day, though, it's like teams that have good scrums are probably looking at this rule like, damn, this sucks for us.
Yeah.
And teams that have maybe self-aware that have weaker scrums are kind of like, okay, maybe we can work with this.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I think it definitely needs to be like, I don't like it. The other
what's the rule you did like, Derek? What was the rule you did like?
The rule actually that I did like, the kick clock, I'm kind of indifferent towards. The rule that I didn't really like it going into it, but then when I saw John Poland get the red card in the Free Jacks LA game, I was like, oh, actually, I kind of like this. The 20-minute thing. I think that's something like I can get behind that idea. I think maybe it is something that you can like mix in, like you said, maybe have a red card and have an orange card. So you can still like if there's an infringement that's bad enough, you can still be like, you guys, like, you're down for a game or whatever. But
yeah, because like if someone goes over and cold clocks somebody,
yeah, exactly, right, like a blatant like
an absolute walks over, decks a guy, like
you're out this game and then we'll see you in 6 months too, like kind of thing. Then I mean that's fair, but like I mean I don't, but like I just think that like, especially in the situation what Poland got his red card for too, I was like, that's a good, like, okay, yeah, 20 minutes, Poland's out of the game. You can get a guy back on. I was like, I kind of like that.
So I liked the rule as well. And I think that one thing people are not looking at enough is that it is forcing teams to use one of their players off the bench. So it's a lot worse at the beginning of the game. So like if you're like 25 minutes into the game, a player gets a red card, especially if it's a forward, even if it's a back, you're now being forced to another 20 minutes later after being down to put that guy in. You're taking that hand away. And if it's one of your best scrummagers or your fly half, or really any position, it's going to be important. That guy's still out of the game. You don't get him back. It's just like in hockey. Like if a guy gets a game misconduct, he's gone. And then the team gets the 5 minute the 5 minute major power play. So like I think it is a step in the right direction, because I just don't see the point of red cards and Stu, correct me if I'm wrong, but in football it's the same thing, right? Like you get a red card, you're done for the game, right? I should know this. I was a soccer ref for like most of my preteens. I should know.
Apparently a bad one.
Apparently, I didn't do it for very long. but like that's the thing, right? Is like, why are we punishing the entire team for a bonehead mistake that one guy made?
Because it's a team sport.
So punish them for 20 minutes. You don't have to punish them for the entire game.
Oh, yeah, no, like I don't mind it or whatever. The other one I was kind of like I was kind of on the fence on, and then I'm like, after seeing it, I'm like, I don't really like the 7-point try. I just think it's weird.
it's weird. And like people were talking a lot about stats, and I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah. The stat thing, it's like I'm not like whatever Major League Rugby decides. I think they need to make a decision on that, obviously, and be like, does the guy get 7 points for that? Does he get 5? And it's like the other 2 are counted as like the same way you would count a penalty try.
I think so. I think that's probably what needs to happen.
I was just like I'm just in that like it's an easy kick, but it's not automatic, and I'm like, you can miss it.
You can. I would, and we talked about this. I would be interested to see the percentage in MLR of missed kicks between the posts. If it's at 100, if it's at like 95%, I'm going whatever.
I thought of this today though. So in baseball, right? No, okay. In baseball, right? You can get called out after hitting a home run. Right. It's super rare. It happens like once a decade, maybe. But if you miss a base or you pass one of your teammates on the base pass, you can get called out hitting a home run, which is why they make you round the bases after hitting a home run. Because for that one time a decade that it might happen, you might screw it up. So
yeah, but like it's super those guys then end up getting cut.
No, not all the time. Sometimes they're actually really good and they just screwed up. I think when I was Googling, I think Lou Gehrig or something had one. He got called out or something. So it's like there's good players. But
all right. Like, that's fine, Derek.
I think you should have like it is. And it's like that was what the origin of a try was too, right? Is like the try used to be in the original days was like you got an attempt to kick. You got to try to kick, right? That's why we call it a try. So it's like a little bit of like it takes away a little bit of the origin of the game too. So I'm kind of
I appreciate I like the history lesson. Thank you.
Yeah, like
the other rule that I was like, okay, it's fine. The scrum offside line being changed. I mean, I get why they do it because it bothers me all to hell when the scrum halves are wrestling over each other, and then like one scrum half will look at the ref and go, "Hey, get this guy off of me," and then the ref will have to tell the guy, "Move, or stop," and let him play. And so, getting all that shenanigans out of the way and just having it. And then you add that scrum half as an extra attacker. So you got an extra extra defender. So, it's whatever. It's in a whatever rule.
I think that's going to be a rule that takes some time to get used to, though. I think there was like watching like the scrums. It's like, I think there was a lot of times where scrum halves were just kind of like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do here.
For sure.
Like,
that's a coaching
I think that's
thing.
I think that's going to be, well, I think even like they're all kind of coaching. Like, I mean, like I said, like I'm not a huge fan of that scrum reset rule, but ultimately now that is the rule. So you got to be able to play with that, and you got to prepare your team to be able to play with that. And I'm curious to see how coaches and stuff maybe adapt to that, both on the defensive side of it and on the offensive side of it. And then I guess we'll see what happens with the rules. Like, I mean,
for sure.
At the end, and who knows? Like, I mean, I'll go back to my optimistic self or whatever. We're talking about them after 1 week, 6 games of seeing what these rules look like. Maybe by the end of week 18, maybe by the end of the final, maybe some of them grow on us. Maybe some of them don't.
Maybe some of them are gone by week 2.
Yeah, maybe
they really weren't specific.
Yeah, exactly.
They're trialing them, right? So
yeah, exactly. Maybe some of them are gone tomorrow. I did like though, small touch. Houston, Aviva Stadium, painting the lines from the post to the dead ball line.
Yeah,
that's nice, or whatever. That actually, like, if that's going to be the rule, that looks clean. I like
because you do know at one point someone's going to put it down like exactly on the line, and people are going to go like, "Oh, is that 7 or is that 5?" Yeah.
Okay. So good job, Houston. I like that. Well done.
All right, guys. Well, let's talk about the Arrows match. First game of the season. The Arrows lost 21-14. All points were scored in the first half. Jack McRogers got his first try in professional rugby. And Tommy Della Vega also scored for the Arrows. The Arrows looked like a team that hadn't played a match in over a year.
So did a lot of teams.
For sure. There were a lot of handling plays that led to balls on the ground, forward passes. The breakdown was interesting for the Arrows. Rugby ATL definitely had the advantage there. Gaston Cortez was sent off at the 69th minute, which we're going to talk about in a second. And the other little bit of news that we kind of got there was that Andrew Ferguson was the set kicker until subbed, and then Taylor Adams took over those responsibilities.
Well, like we didn't see the Arrows never got to attempt to kick like a penalty after Ferguson came out, right? This is like Ferguson did the conversion and then he kicked one penalty, but Adams was the I guess the after penalty kick to touch guy the whole game.
Yeah.
So we never actually.
That's true. That's fair. Fair point.
But that is still a penalty. That is still a set kick. Just because.
But he was doing that. He was doing that before as well when Ferguson was on the field.
Yeah, like Ferguson did the kicking, and then Adams did.
It was an interesting decision to make, but yeah, I mean, you also have it in sometimes it'll be the number 10 will do those kind of kicks, and then you'll have like a center or a winger or
how is this any different? It's just a scrum half.
Yeah, I'll talk about that with the Legion later. Okay, but guys, what worked well for the Arrows? I'll go first because I have the stats up. Rugby ATL only won 50% of their scrums. So, we talked about how the Arrows kind of took advantage of the scrum. Well, boy, howdy, did they ever. They won 85.71% of their own scrums, which is pretty good. It's close to tops in the league, but they really took advantage of Rugby ATL scrum. So it's great to see that the scrum is still dominant even after.
So for anybody that wants to argue with us about our opinion of the scrum reset rule, please take into consideration which team we cheer for.
Yeah.
Because we've never claimed that this podcast is unbiased. So please take into consideration that we do cheer for the scrum with the team with the best scrum in the league. So,
all right, Derek, what do you think worked well in that game?
The scrum, I guess. The scrum was good. Too bad they couldn't use it. But yeah, tough game. I think obviously the start, good start. You got obviously Jack McRogers. Kind of weird play really for Jack McRogers' first try. That kind of that broken sort of line out. The ball didn't go to hands. It kind of took a very favorable bounce, and McRogers busted out like that. Nice 40-meter scamper into Atlanta territory, and then he got himself into a nice position and found himself on the other end of a beautiful dime from Taylor Adams. So that was a great, the start was great. Rumball played good. Della Vega played good. I thought Lesage
part of MLR's team of the week.
Yeah, Rumball did Lucas Rumball things even up until the final play of the game where he stole the ball in that last line-out maul. Which he might be one of the best guys in the league at actually doing that very specific skill. But he did it. It was that crazy one against Houston last year too. It was him, and I thought the crazy thing watching that video was that he got the ball 15 meters before the try line or whatever. Houston had no chance at scoring that try because Rumball had the ball the whole time. But I think Rumball did that really well. I think he was super involved in the game. He was at almost every ruck. He and he was doing well at the breakdown. Like you kind of said, Atlanta might have, in the grand scheme of things overall, maybe had the edge on the breakdown. But Rumball and Della Vega were still they were, Arrows were taking some hits there, but Della Vega and Rumball were giving some back too. I thought Lesage played really well in his kind of brief appearance. I think obviously his highlight was he had that unreal try-saving tackle on Connor Cook, which would probably be a lot cooler if Johan Momsen didn't decide to score about a minute later. But it was still a really nice tackle. Then he had he had a solid line break and stuff too. For that's for the positive things. I think line out, obviously Rugby ATL, they had 2 line out maul tries, and then their other try came off of a set piece play that followed a line out. So you kind of got to work on that. And obviously, and that was another thing, why I didn't like that rule, because when Rumball couldn't go to the scrum, and as Dan, you just established, the Arrows own the scrum. right? They dominated the scrum, and it's like, what's your other option at that point? You're like, you know what I mean? You're down by 7. You're trying to come back in the game, right? Your other option is the line out, which Rugby ATL was beating you at
Yeah.
during the game, right? So
Tough,
it's
tough
that's why,
situation.
like, it's like that's the rule though, but it's like the rule took out an advantage from the Toronto Arrows that I felt. Like, I feel like in that situation, if you asked Matt Heaton, it's like, hey, the Arrows got a penalty, you get to pick what they wanted, what they do. I feel like Matt Heaton chooses lineup.
Yeah.
Right. For, you know what I mean? But I think, yeah, like, I think honestly, like, things to work on. I mean, I don't like, they got to, you know, quicker ball out of the rucks, but as that kind of goes into what Dan was saying about like the rucks, you know, Atlanta was causing a lot of problems. I think like Marno Redeling, Hui's, Connor Cook, Johan Momsen, big kind of, you know, they were agitators all night. Cook and Momsen too, like, you know, I think they had a couple line out steals each, or they combined for like 3, I think. So, you know, that's something that's got to get worked on. Like, I think ultimately though, and it's like, I know like the coaching staff was not thrilled with their performance on Saturday night. But like, I don't like, there's nothing that I saw personally in that game that I was like, I'm very concerned about. There's nothing there. I was just like, first game in a while, it was tough because it's like, I'm not even like, Atlanta won the game, and it's like they deserve, like, deservingly so, not taking anything away from Atlanta. But I was like, you know what I mean? It's like, you got a bonus. Like, I feel like it's still at the end of the day, it's like Toronto got a bonus point loss, and they played like nowhere near their standard, right? Which is not, I don't think it's like a necessarily cause for panic. It's just like, I mean, you know, get some more territory in the second half when you're trailing, but, you know, bit of faster ball at the breakdown. I think Higgins was doing a little bit better of getting the ball out a bit quicker than Ferguson was. But
I'll go next, Derek's, and then Stu, I like to hear you finish this off. What worked well was the scrum really was really strong, and again, I showed the stats to it. They kept their handling errors pretty low when you look across the board. They had 11 handling errors. I mean, Rugby ATL had 9, so I mean they edged them on that. But when you compare it against across the league, that's pretty good.
I mean, if you want to compare stats, like, it's fun. It's funny comparing stats across the league sometimes, I think, because you could also be like, the Arrows allowed the second least points this week. It's too bad they played the team that allowed the least, though, right?
Yeah, they did well defensively, I found, in the second half. Really were nuisances. What needed improving? See, I'm a little less. I didn't come out of that game feeling very good about it. I know that the nice thing is, like Derek mentioned it, that there are a lot of things that happen in that game that can be fixed.
It can all, like, anything.
It can all be. They're all fixable things.
It's like,
but
it probably,
you know, it's a problem, and if they can't be fixed, they're going to have a long season.
Fixed. I think, like, and I think it's gonna be fixed.
Yeah, that's again, but you don't know that, right? Like that, we can say that and we can hope, and I'm pretty sure it is going to get fixed, but it might not get fixed.
Oh, it's gonna get.
The one thing I really wanted to focus on, and it was something that I was not happy to see from some of the players, was the red mist kind of showed up a couple times, and it was lippy, and there was pushing, and there was shoving, and it goes both ways, you know. Like,
you get a penalty.
ATL was kind of being lippy and chirpy. Momsen was getting in people's face, and he was chirping and stuff like that. But like, some of the goings on with some of the guys in the second half, it was brutal. Like, watch them push and shove and scream and shout and get upset with the ref, and it just, if that's the one thing that I want to focus on, it's like, let's keep level headed. I saw this also in the Colorado game, their last game of the year. You know, they were really fired up and you know, taking silly penalties and getting fired up, and it just wasn't a good look for the team. And you almost never see it. Like, you know, they've been in tough, grinding game matches before. I think about their games against Seattle, the games against the games against Rooney. Like they've had tough matches, and they never got super upset and aggressive like they did in that game and against the game against Colorado. So wasn't really happy about that. And so I hope that is looked at by the leadership group and by the coaching staff that, okay, like we need to keep our emotions in check so we don't either get cards or we don't take any more penalties, because wasn't a big fan of that. Personal player of the match, really liked what I saw out of Adrian Wadden. Really liked what I saw. He had a couple really good carries, and he did not look out of sorts. That was my big worry is, a kid coming out of, one of the best university leagues in the world, but, still not pro rugby. And he looked good. So I was very happy to see him have a good game. And who impressed me from the opposition? Connor Cook. Again, bringing back that Colorado game, Connor Cook, I believe, was in that game, and I believe he also had a very good game for Colorado. So it just brought me back these two things in this game brought me back to the Colorado game. I'm like, yeah, I remember him being an absolute, pain in the arse in the line out and a pain in the arse at the breakdown. So I was impressed by him all game. So
you want a weird bring back to the Colorado game? If you actually want to go back to that Colorado game last year?
I don't, but I did.
All right. Technically, and yes, I know it's been like 53, 54 weeks between games. This is technically the first time in Arrow's history they've lost back-to-back games. Technically. I feel like
big asterisk.
I feel like it does not matter at all and has no actual implication on this at all. But it's kind of weirdly interesting. But
two very similar games when you really think about it.
Also, like they have an 11-game regular season winning streak last year, right? So it's like I think winning streaks carry over through seasons. Losing streaks do not. Losing streaks end. But you know what? The reason though too, like I'm not worried really about any of those things. Like, I mean, it's an emotional game, physical game. Emotions get high sometimes. As long as you're not,
but they've been in emotional games before and not flying off the handle.
As long as you're not taking penalties, it's all right. But I think like the other thing too, it's like why I'm not worried is like if you look at like I said, the Arrows don't lose back to back like ever. So you kind of look at the games that they have lost. They lost to NOLA in their opener. They came back. They beat Austin 23-19. They lost to Seattle. Then they beat Houston by 44-27. So they put up a big number on Houston. They lose to Glendale in the snow, and then they have the epic comeback on San Diego. They lose to New York and then put up the MLR record for most points in a game. Then they lose to New Orleans.
Yeah, we don't have to go through all the games, but I get what you're saying.
I think they'll be fine.
And like I said, I understand that all those things were fixable.
Oh yeah.
It just wasn't fun to watch. It wasn't. Maybe it's the standard that they have set for themselves.
Yeah.
But it wasn't great to watch, and that's what bummed me out.
Yeah.
Stu, how did you feel about the game? Go down the list and tell us about what you felt about that game.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, like, Harley Davidson suffered a horrific collision with one of his teammates, and you have to get the stretcher out. He was taken away to a local hospital. From what the commentators said is that he was responsive, giving the thumbs up to the crowd just to make sure everyone was okay, which is the best news, especially when you have to watch that again in slow motion. That was not a pleasant thing to watch. And a stark reminder that this is a full contact sport. And even when you can do everything right, someone else can be in the wrong place at the wrong time. What works well, I think we've already gone over this, the scrum.
The scrum, Lucas
could do it.
Vega, that worked well.
What needs improving? I think what needs improving for all teams is just more game time. Obviously, COVID situation has not been a positive experience for any of the teams, because there were a lot of errors. I think even with, because I've got the stats up as well, is that the penalties conceded every single team was in the double digits, and I think the highest was Atlanta, actually, who conceded 21 penalties.
You have mandatory scrum penalties now, so that's probably going to.
And like
realistically, that's probably going to bump the penalty count. Oh, like I guess, Stu, I understand the point that you're trying to make, and I get it, and I think you're right. But it's like, does that not? Yeah. It's not. That's the thing. I actually never thought of that till now. Is that not going to like artificially bump the penalty count up a lot? Because you have to give penalties, right?
Oh no, there's been some like a scrum reset, and they just give that like a free kick to the team, right?
Yeah, I think as well is something that needs to be worked on was adaptability. For example, there were 2 occasions where it was a driving maul close to the try line, and it was an issue of they tried to do the same thing twice, and it's after the first time, if that didn't work, what they should have done was they'd gotten Atlanta's forwards all close in around this maul, and then they were doing the pick and go game. And I think maybe if they had tried to like fan out to the wing, may have been more successful. Obviously, shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's really hard to make a point. I will say that both teams had impeccable defense in the second half, despite all the. I guess that is with an asterisk by it as well, because there were things such as losing possession or accidentally knocking balls on, or just like slip pass and things like that. So, but with the announcement from Brian Ray that the Arrows went down to 14 men in the 69th minute, I think it still stands to reckon that in that case, Atlanta had the man advantage. They surely should have been able to score points on in that opportunity, and they didn't. And
in the last 10 minutes too, like that was probably like the Arrows got the ball down.
They were in the majority.
So the player that stood out to me from Atlanta, I'd say has to be their kicker, Ezcura. I thought that, he's quick, he's nimble. I've said he's probably one to watch out for Atlanta. And clearly he was, because we won't talk about his penalty kicks because he scored none of them. Neither did the Arrows. So make it that way. But getting all the conversions compared to the Arrows who only needed one conversion. I also like seeing Mires pass to Levis and Levis darting down the wing. I was pretty sure that was a no arm tackle that stopped the momentum, but I'm not the referee. I can't make those decisions. And so there were a few like things that need improving, such as the line outs. Mm-hmm. When it comes to mauls, it may be we may need to focus on the backs in the sense of if you can't do a reset scrum or like a new scrum penalty, then tap and go has to be the way to go, which I think is what the league is trying to do. They want to get fast play going on again. And especially if you're that close to the try line and you just do a quick tap and go, then you get the automatic penalty advantage because all players are offside. Could put a lot of other teams under real pressure. But I think, maybe focusing more on the back's involvement when it comes to things like this, and sucking in the defense only to then go wide should be something to focus on. But I agree with Derek in that there were issues, but nothing that seemed unsolvable.
Now, we've talked a lot about the Arrows game, so we have to move on, but we wanted to mention one more thing, and we can't spend too much time on it, guys, but Gaston Cortez was sent off at the 69th minute. Stu kind of mentioned it. Don't know what was going on with the broadcast. No one really seemed to know until post-game that it even happened. People just assumed that he was subbed off.
Even like post-game, like it was Brian Ray's tweet, which was like 8 o'clock.
That's how most people found out. Yeah. So it was
like 24 hours after the game, pretty much.
Yeah. So really strange situation. Hopefully this won't happen much. It happened again in the Austin game. Derek, was that the game that you were mentioning?
I believe there was a couple. Yeah, because Austin had the referee awarded when the Sabercat, or sorry, not the Austin Sabercats. That's something there. Well, gosh,
all complaints from Texas.
That's
to,
exactly.
Derek at
anyways, the Gilgronis were awarded.
The San Antonio Jackals played really well too. But I guess they actually got an opportunity to kind of use their scrum that they was playing well, and they ended up earning a penalty try. Penalty try comes with a yellow card, right? And then, but they never showed who got the yellow card on that one. And then I think there was an incident or two in the Rooney game where there was a yellow card. Right. It was only the broadcast. The only indication on the broadcast was that you could hear Scott Green's mic still on, and that's how the indication came. I think ultimately with that's obviously, I think that's something that the league needs to look at, just because those are big moments in the game and stuff too. And I think too, like, you know, when we were talking about like the league kind of getting that deal with Genius, and you know the Arrows have that deal with CoolBet, which was awesome because CoolBet actually had Major League Rugby. If anybody actually went to it to check it out, they actually had like Major League Rugby on like their popular tab. So it was literally like the NHL, like MLB Spring Training, March Madness, Major League Rugby as like the top things to like bet on for like the day or whatever. So that was cool. But I think like one of those things is like looking at like CoolBet's website. Like one of the things that they do offer is like live in-game betting. Right. So it's like you can bet on the result, like things like who's going to score next. Right. Like, you know what I mean? And I think, and it's ultimately, you can also bet on who's going to win, and you can do it based on like what the score of the game is now, how much time's left. And I feel like those are situations where like, if you really do want to expand into that, like betting and like, you know, like the companies that do like the betting, gambling, and then like people that, because we're so psyched, like Dan, you're reading off stats that Major League Rugby put on their website, right, and stuff, and it's like the app has player stats on it, right? So it's like, and people, like I've heard a lot of podcasts, including ours, like talking about how excited we are about like, you know, that this seems to be like they're leading into fantasy and gambling and stuff, and it's like that's one of those things that it's like I feel like the red cards and stuff, like you can't miss big things like that. Because it's like if you were to do like, imagine it, like if someone put like an in-game bet down on like the Arrows to win in the 70th minute, and then, you know, the next day you find out that the Arrows were, when you place that bet, the Arrows were down 14 guys, or they were down one, they had 14 men, right? Like it's, you know what I mean? Like I'm looking at it from that point of view. And then like even, and I think the league, like I think this is going to be a good week, like for the league and stuff too, like to kind of show that it's like all these great things that they've been doing for like the off-field stuff, all the sponsorship deals, you know, American Airlines, Geico, you know, getting like the betting thing going on. It's like I think this is going to be a good week to show like that the league is really like diving into that and stuff. Well, there's a couple red cards, Cortez, John Poland, right? And it's like red cards come with suspensions, right? We know that they're going to be, we know that they're suspended, right? It's like, right, last year, they didn't announce suspensions formally, right? It's like, I think that would be something, especially like if you want to get into fantasy and stuff, like that's something that, you know, fans are going to expect, right? And same with like a handful of guys got hurt too, right? And it's like you gotta, like I would like to see the Toronto Arrows not be the only team that's doing injury reports. And I think it's like if nobody was doing it, I'm not sure like I would complain, or like my complaint or my gripe would be as much. But since there is a team doing it, right, that to me that indicates that every team can do it. Right. So it's like that's something that I would like to see, especially like if you wanted to do fantasy, like Dan, picture if we did a fantasy draft 2 weeks ago and you picked Jeff Hassler, and now you're just like, well, where is he? Right. Well, if you listen to like the Austin Rugby Supporter podcast, he's got a cast on his hand, so he's probably not playing. Right. But it's like there's no indication from the actual Austin Gilgronis, right, and stuff. And I think that's just going to be like a couple of things. Like I think, yeah, like talk about that, and then talk about the broadcast and like how like, yeah, you can't miss cards, but then also be like, you know, be proactive as a league to be like, if you want to get into the fantasy and the gambling thing, it's like some more of this information and stuff is gonna have to come out, right? So I'm hoping to see like official, like and again, we record on Tuesday. So if you're listening to this on Thursday or Friday, perhaps they've done it. And if they've done it, I am super excited about that. Um and but like I guess we'll wait and see. So
Yeah, the other big problem that this is going to have.
We'll wait and see if the announcements come.
Yeah,
there's
the big thing is that if Cortez is suspended long term, this is going to have a huge effect on the Arrows scrum.
I don't think it won't be that long.
But even if it's just for two games, like it's still gonna have an effect. You know, the props that are behind them are young, so we'll see how that turns out.
Well, yeah.
All right. Well,
that's also why like you would want to, if you're betting on games, like you would also kind of want to know if who's playing too, right? Like,
all right, guys. Well, we are running out of time, so we are going to do our 5-minute match reviews. We're gonna go through all the opening weekend games. Stu, you're on the clock first with NOLA and DC. Starting now.
Okay, so this was the last game of the weekend. It was supposed to open the season because of COVID restriction or protocols. It was moved to the Sunday, and which I think is great. It's better than canceling the game or anything like that. But this was an interesting game because this is a game that I think many people, including
all of us who picked very terribly during this game.
Oh, I was 1-6 this weekend.
So was I. I think everyone.
Yeah, and so
you were 1-6, Dan. You lost games that didn't play.
Yeah,
that's how bad you were. Oh, you were 1-4-6, not 1-6. You were 1-4-6. I see what you're
1-4-6. Yeah.
That's a difference. Okay.
Hey, this is eating into my 5-minute breakdown.
Here,
come on.
I'll give you an extra 10 seconds. Go.
Okay, so it was a game that ended 26-all, but NOLA especially should have put this away. I think they had like multiple opportunities to score tries, and even though it is a tie, they did walk away with the bonus point with the 4 tries that they scored. But this was a fantastic game to watch. I think there's a lot of engaging moments, especially with DC's tries, because some of those were just not intercepts, but quick turnarounds, like Danny Tusitala's first try, especially, and then his second to open the second half, which I thought would have been, okay, this is where DC take it and run away with it. But at the same time, less than 10 minutes later, Karl Meyer comes along and he scores a try as well. So, yeah, it's definitely been an interesting one to close out. And that final try by Juan Capillo was, I could hear all the DC hearts breaking when he scored that try, because they knew that as soon as they got the conversion, those 4 match points went down to 2, and that was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. Some of the standout players, I'm gonna say from the wing back into the center, it was Doug Fraser once again, who's I don't want this to come across as like insulting or anything like that, but he's looked like he's had time to put on a bit more muscle in preseason. Maybe improve his defensive stats, but I'm sure he still had like lightning pace. Didn't have the opportunity to score any tries this time around, unfortunately. But now he looks ready for this MLR season. I especially think it goes well with the mustache he has on his profile photo on the Old Glory website. But I say going forward, I think NOLA need to basically improve their attack, because they'll be coming up against teams with great defense as well. And DC, in contrast, need to be able to work on their defense. Ultimately, I think this is, especially after Super Saturday and the first day of like multiple games being played at the same time, to have one game on its own which you could just absorb as you watch it and not have any conflict, it was fantastic one to watch. So if you have 2 hours spare, you can either watch half of the Zack Snyder's Justice League, or I would recommend watch this entire game because it's absolutely
I haven't
to watch.
I haven't watched the Snyder Cut yet, Stu. I know you have. Is
Neither
it worth the 4 hours?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll work that.
All right. I'm up next. I've got the San Diego versus New York game starting now. Brief summary of the game. It really looks, when you look at the stats, and again, just looking at the stats, it looked like San Diego had the upper hand by a slight margin. 53% territory to Rooney's 47. They had more tackles broken, more turnover tackles, less handling errors. But I think what it came down to is Rooney really took advantage of their opportunities. They had more lineouts won, which could be a couple things. It could be they had just had a better offensive lineout or a better defensive lineout. And also maybe they just spent more time having opportunities off of penalties. They did have more turnovers, 6 to the Legion's 2. So it was a messy game. From being the first game of the season, it didn't give a lot of people confidence when you saw the TV quality. Hopefully, they can set up some type of scaffolding grandstand situation where they can get some better views, because it did not look the best.
Set up something to hold the posts up too.
Yeah. I also will be talking about another game later that had the exact opposite effect in terms of media quality. But yeah, it was just a messy game, a lot of mistakes. Cecil Africa looked great in open field, like he was just kind of running around like a maniac. In terms of Canadians, Josh Thiel was serviceable. They kind of gave him a little bit of a sheltered role. Dylan Audsley was doing all the kicking in the game for conversions and penalty, and the one penalty that he made. So he did all the kind of the points kicking and also kind of kicking into touch. So Josh kind of was just kind of the playmaking fly half. He didn't really handle any of the kicking duties. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets to play starting fly half again, if he gets more of an opportunity in terms of that side of the game. Other than that, he made, I think, 8 tackles, so he had a pretty good tackle rate. On the other side of the pitch, we had Quinn Nguati starting on the wing, which is interesting because all of his Rugby Canada time has been as a center, and he's kind of touted as a center. So for him to play on the wing was interesting. He did not get a lot of action in terms of the game. He played 71 minutes. He had 3 tackles. And the MLR app says for ball carries, he had 27. So I don't know if that's 27 meters made or 27 touches. If it's 27 touches, that's a lot. And I don't remember him getting the ball that much. So I'm going to assume it's 27 meters.
What does it say on the apps? It says carry.
It says ball carry 27. So I'm going to assume that's 27 meters because he did not have the most impactful game. It seems that they were going out the other way with the ball. But yeah, it just ended up just being one of those games where they might not have had the best possession. It was very much a Toronto Maple Leafs beginning of the decade, of the 2010s decade, where did not hold the possession, but they took their opportunities when they could and just kind of sheltered the storm defensively. So other than the TV quality, it was a fun game to watch. Chris Robshaw did not make his debut with San Diego. There were talks. We're actually someone mentioned to us on Twitter that they believe Karen Lozana was mentioning that it might be because of the Barbarians stuff that he might still be suspended from playing. Fun game. There were better games. Mm-hmm. Moving on, Derek. Houston versus Seattle.
Yeah, this one was actually pretty fun. One of those games, I think, obviously we got 2 Canadians in the front row with Ilaniki and Sears Duru, or Sears Duru and Ilaniki in order of jersey number. But Houston kind of had the upper hand on their scrum. Connolly was kind of giving Sears Duru some problems there. I think Sears Duru got he got dinged for a couple penalties and stuff in the scrum. They were able to use that. I think, it was one of those games that kind of went back and forth the whole time. Like Seattle would score, Houston would score, Seattle would score, Houston would score. Um, Ultimately, Taylor Howden, unreal cutout pass, like legitimately like half the field out to like Matthias Frere for the try in the corner, would prove to be the game winner. I think kind of looking at this game, so obviously Seattle had the advantage, or sorry, Houston had the advantage at the scrum, but I also think too, like Ben Sema got hurt and left the game in the 32nd minute. I think at that point too, like Sam Windsor kind of took over a little bit of the kicking game on that side, and in the second half they were able to kind of use that to control some territory. Um, Canadian impact on it. I guess it's like Sears Dewar and Il Nicky, like they were fine, but they came out. I think they came out on the wrong end of the overall scrum picture. Um, but then I think you also have like George Barton. I thought played pretty well. He had some big carries. They used him kind of as like the crash ball center, which is what you use George Barton for. He had a big carry in the build up to the first try that was scored by Les Solai. So that was nice to see. I think ultimately too, like he started opening up some space for Ross Neal to operate, and Ross Neal himself kind of ended up getting a try too. So I thought he played a pretty solid game. Nakai Penny came on late. Didn't necessarily have anything that really stood out to me personally. Um, I thought Houston, no Canadians on Houston. They didn't line any of their Pacific Pride guys or for the first game of the season here. Windsor obviously stands out every time Sam Windsor plays. I thought actually one of my favorite parts of this game, just because it's like I haven't like laughed like watching like genuine laughter in a while. And when Dan Power and Brian Hightower were talking about how great Sam Windsor was as a kicker, and then he just shanks the next kick or whatever. I was like, this is so funny. I thought it was hilarious.
Oh man, I haven't watched this game yet. I'll have to go watch it just because of that.
Oh, man, no, you have to. It's amazing. And that, like, honestly, with that being said, Dan Power, Brian Hunt, like they're amazing commentators. Like they killed this game. It's unreal. Like they were great. I just laughed out loud at that one. Also, scrum half for them, Jin Ho Mung, who was originally a Dallas Jackal and then now is playing there. He was terrific. I thought he was great. He got he had a great. There was the Zach Pangelian try, which was like, I know Stu kind of mentioned like guys flipping the field like really quick. That was a play where it's like the Seattle ball carrier comes in, Windsor tackles him. Moon is immediately over, like his previous team name, jackals the ball up and just pops it to Pangelian, who's already circling around, and he just underneath. This, I think, is the moment of the game where I'm like, oh, cool. Houston actually painted lines to mark that this try is going directly under the post. So I thought he had a great game. Matthias Frere was great. Magno was great. It's just Rhino Herbst too for Seattle. He was really solid. And I think like just overall, I think ultimately final thoughts on the game. Good for Houston. That's a nice way to start your season, knocking off the two-time defending champs. We'll see if they can keep it up. For Seattle, based on what I saw last year, Ben Sema's hurt for a while. That could be problematic, but hopefully he's not.
I mean, he's a guy who's had injury problems kind of consistently throughout his young
thing,
career.
right? So like Seattle was winning at the end of the first half, right? And the second half is the half they didn't have Ben Sema in. Like, right, just kind of like last year, right? Like they didn't. I feel like Ben Sema is a very important player to that team.
Hopefully Aaron Matthews is what they say he is.
He was also good. He had some nice carries. Solid first game.
He was the player that was tackled, and then Munn took the ball away from him.
Oh, okay, yeah, it was. Yeah, that's all right. I didn't want to name him and make him feel bad. That's why I said this.
Yeah, that's fine.
Smooth.
Okay, well, I have LA and New England. So let's get started. So I mentioned in the Rooney game that there was another game that, in terms of the broadcast, kind of was the exact opposite of the San Diego and Rooney game. And in terms of my viewing pleasure, it was like back to back. So I went from the Rooney San Diego game to LA and New England, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Now I realize that why they kind of picked this place, like between the decos they put and
cool.
And the broadcasting angles that they had, it was great. And like all weekend I was singing California Love to myself. California Love. And I'm like, duh, duh, duh. I was just like all through the house, I was just doing that.
DTH kind of on his second try threw up the little like California.
Yeah, threw up the little heart
signal. Yeah, that was I want that to be a thing.
So
why he did that, but like
I want for sure. Like the arrow's up, fire the arrow. I want that to be a thing.
I want the Giltinis to dive into this California Love celebration.
Yeah. So this game is kind of the opposite of the first game I talked about. When you look at the stats, it very much shows you how the game went. The Giltinis had 63% of the territory. They had less. Just making sure I'm right about this. They interestingly had more handling errors, but that's what happens when you have 63% of the territory in the possession. You're going to take more errors. Less penalties conceded, more line breaks, more tackles broken, more lineouts won. So all these things are kind of conducive to the team had the ball the team had the ball most of the game, and it showed. They had 6 tries. Our boy DTH Van River, who was on the show, scored the first try in Giltini's history, and then added an extra one just for fun. Corey Thomas also joined into the action. Poor Travis Larson. I feel, or not Travis, Josh. I feel like Josh was talking to the ref all the time in this game between, the 2 yellow cards, the 1 red card. Like I thought that he was just like buddied up with the ref. He was with them the whole time.
He did a good job captaining.
He did. Oh, for sure. Like he fought for his team and did a good job. I thought that the Free Jacks pack was pretty strong and aggressive. They had that cool try with the kind of the fake play off of the line out, which was really fun. The big thing that you noticed with the Giltinis, though, is they won 83.3% of the scrums, where the Free Jacks won 75%. So that was something that people were putting a big asterisk on the Giltinis on. If they're going to succeed this year, their scrum has to come together. So that was great to see. I think when it comes to the Giltinis, their vets really kind of just knew what to do. I think in the end of the day, rugby is just a sport. If you've played in enough games, like over 100 caps for the Wallabies, you're going to just kind of know where to be and what to do. That's people say that about Joe Thornton. He just knows where to be on the ice. So I think a lot of that was happening. But another thing I kind of noticed that I think might be a problem for the Giltinis is some of these dudes are old, wow. Some of them were hit and it took them a little bit longer. Even DTH was hit and he stayed down for a little bit of time. He had to get a trainer come out. And that's one thing I was kind of thinking to myself, that like with age, they're really going to have to manage their stars. And luckily they've got good depth in their backs. Like, Mika Cruze didn't play. Luke Carty didn't, he came off the bench. So they've got some guys that could come in. Like Nick Boyer didn't even play. So they've got the pieces, but I think that the battle nutrition will be really important for this team, especially since they got such older guys that are their stars. With the Free Jacks, there just wasn't a whole lot of creativity. Bowden Walker had a strong game. Dougie Fife had a strong game, but I think there just needs to be a little bit more. Again, when you only have 37% of the possession time, it's hard to show what you can do offensively, and they still scored 27 points out of it, a lot of it off of Waka's boot. So Giltinis, give yourselves a pat on the back. Great game. Free Jacks, you got a lot of work to do, and it's a long season, so I think you can manage to do a little bit better. Okay. And then the last game was the AGs versus the Warriors. So Stu, give us a little snippet into what happened in that game.
Arrow's opponent next week too.
So I've chosen both games that were the closest encounters this weekend. One would draw, and this one was decided by only 2 points. Utah took a strong lead, but Austin were able to get back into the game. As you said earlier, Derek, there was a penalty try, and while it wasn't listed on the broadcasters who was given the card, it was Jury Van Vuren who was yellow carded. But as in like Sama Malolo and Lance Williams. So for 30 minutes of this match, Utah were playing with 14 men, not consecutively in the sense of 30 minutes, but that. And I think this was an issue with when San Diego in 2019, that they had a lot of issues with conceding penalties and then conceding cards. And it definitely affected them when they played Toronto in Toronto, because they also had like 3 yellow cards that day. So yeah, and it almost came down to the final penalty, the final kick of the match, with Mac Mason going for an absolutely mammoth, I think it was closer to 60 meters and 50 meters, because it was inside his own half to get the penalty. Unfortunately for Austin, it just went a few feet to the side when Utah regathered, kicked it out, game over. So heartbreaking for Austin. But on the plus side, they did score 4 tries and they lost within 7, so they do get down the line. And the rest of the season could be like the big thing that decide if they go to the playoffs or not. Standout players, I would say for Utah that they had, let me get the name right, Fraser Hurst in the lineup, but they didn't use him, so that was disappointing.
Oh.
But for Austin, boo, Utah, boo. The good news is they're getting a lot of Canadians next week. So
I'm slightly disappointed that the 2 teams that didn't use any Canadians both won. I'm slightly disappointed.
Yeah.
I
know, but the moral victory went to the Canadian using teams, and a try victory definitely went to Austin, where Mo Abdelmonem scored his first try, I believe, for Austin in the 55th minute, and this was the start of the comeback for Austin, because after that, Jury Van Verden did score a try himself, but then he conceded a try. And then Paddy Ryan scored his own try on the 77th minute. And that's the difference that allowed Austin to get back. But, congratulations for Mo. He's a guy that I think has been like knocking on the door of the Canadian team and could be one of the names that is utilized, especially in the build up to the next World Cup. So, anything that can give him like a boost of confidence is fine in my book.
He got the Austin Player of the Game award.
Yeah, so congratulations to him. There were a fair few issues which have like plagued all the teams of just it's standard for a team. For none of these teams have had really a proper preseason, and even LA, even though they went to like Maui for a month, they haven't really been playing a lot of opposition. They did have a preseason game against Austin, but it's not the same. But positives can definitely be brought away for both teams, and I think any team that thinks that Austin is still the walkovers they were in 2019 or the start of 2020, no, they're not. They're here to play. They're here to get points. They're here to score tries. And Utah, even though they're the Mr. Inconsistent, I think that they starting to build their own momentum, and ideally for them, they'll be able to continue it for the next few games. But that's still yet to be seen.
All right, guys. So we're gonna finish off by going to our picks for week 2. Last week, Stu had the best record with he was 2-4.
Oh God.
He picked the Guiltinis and the
Wait.
Sabercats.
Do we not get a try? We get a tie, right? We can't.
You and I are tied. Because
No,
I picked
I picked the NOLA DC game doesn't count as a win.
Yeah, okay,
It's
fine.
tie, right? It's a tie.
Fine. So
I just want to make sure if my record's
Derek and I are tied, the same record. 1-3-1. And Stu is 2-2-1. Because he got the Sabercats and Guiltinis. You picked the Free Jacks, but you also got Rooney. And I picked the Guiltinis.
I was feeling really
good. Derek picked New England. That's why.
Yeah, I picked New England.
Yeah, I said the Free Jacks.
I was feeling like really good about it because Rooney San Diego ended up being the first game. And I was like, sweet, like,
woo!
Yeah, this is going good. My upset picks. It was like I told everybody Rooney would win, and Rooney like backed it up, and they did it, and then it went downhill from there very quickly. Yeah. Not even downhill, like just straight jump off a cliff.
All right, guys. So we're gonna go with the first game is Nola and Rooney. Who do you got?
Ooh, where are we playing? We're playing in Nola.
Nola.
Honestly, I feel like Nola should have won their game against DC by like 15. So I'm going to take Nola.
Stu, who do you got?
I'm on the fence because I think Nola, if they learn from the mistakes of last week, they'll be able to walk this. At the same time, New York are with the momentum in their sales. So I'm going to be contrarian and I'm going to pick New York.
Okay. I'm also picking Nola because I think that they've got a little bit more to give and it'll be scary when they do. Okay, this is gonna be a tough one. I guess they're all
actually kind of
they're all tough.
Looking at it now, they're all kind of fun week.
DC versus Rugby ATL.
Who's home?
DC.
Wow.
It is home, but it's also a new location.
That's still home.
So, is it really home?
Yes.
Derek, who are you picking?
Just because Stu's contemplating on the fact that DC's not at home, I'm taking DC now.
Okay. Stu, who are you picking?
You know what? I'm going to go DC as well.
I'm going with Rugby ATL.
Sorry.
Okay. Houston is hosting New England. Who do you guys got?
Who do you think is going to win that? Who do you think? Because we've answered the first two.
I said the Free Jacks. I'm looking at my Super Brew. I picked Free Jacks.
Okay.
I said it was going to be close.
Eric? Oh man, this is tough. You know what? Just because I didn't believe in them last week, I'll take Houston.
Houston, okay.
For no reason, just because I did. They have cool jerseys, and they painted lines behind the post.
Stu?
I think home advantage is has already benefited Houston. I think it's going to continue, so I'm going to pick Houston as well.
Okay. I'm assuming we're all going to pick Toronto.
Yes. But like, not even just like not even in just like I don't want to pick against like my team way. Like I
generally think they're
like Toronto is going to bounce back nicely this week.
I
genuinely believe that.
Because I think I'm like same mind as you, but in slight different introspect in that I think Utah still have that monkey on their back of not being able to win consecutive matches. And
guys, how did that feel to spend like 20 minutes talking about how Utah doesn't have like late game stamina, only for them to come out the gate and like hold on to a really tight lead late in the game?
Well, that was interesting, but I think it's the exception and not the rule. So right. That's what I'm going with.
Okay. Austin versus San Diego.
Oh my. Oh man, this is a really tough one.
This is probably the one I'm most interested in seeing.
Yeah, I agree. This is, I think, the most fascinating game of the week.
I said Austin by 3 points, so I think it's going to be really, really close.
See, that's why I
think Austin's going to win.
It's like I think you have the San Diego Legion, who was last year was the dominant team, the team everyone thought was going to win a championship, and then you have Austin, who everyone's being is saying significantly improved. I mean, some people are like they're a playoff team. Some people are thinking that they're going to be kind of out of it, or kind of like, not like out of it as in like last, but like they'll just miss the playoffs and fight for it, complete like kind of franchise turning around, right? What did Dan say?
I said Austin.
San Diego.
All right, that's fine. All right, Stu, who are you picking?
I believe that Austin are in the ascendancy. San Diego, I'm not certain if they're stagnating. I don't think they're getting worse. But I think that this is going to be another close encounter. Yeah, I'm going to say Austin.
Okay, last game is LA versus Seattle. I picked LA by like 2 tries.
Yeah, I'm going with LA as well.
Yeah, I mean, unless I find out Ben Sima's playing LA, then like I don't yeah, I think you kind of have to. I think go, yeah, especially I don't know. It's just LA, like you saw, like what their backline kind of did last week, and it'll be interesting. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Seattle won, but I think yeah, I think it's gonna, especially again at home, LA.
All right,
it goes.
All right, guys. Well, that's where we will end it tonight. Then, thank you very much, gentlemen. It was a great episode. If you guys want to listen to more of our episodes, kind of look back during the lockdown and see all of our interviews with Arrows and other Canadian players, feel free to look us up on social media. We're on YouTube, Rouge Rugby. We're found everywhere on all the podcasting platforms. We've had a lot of really great interviews, and we're really looking forward to some more rugby next weekend.
Next time on Rouge Rugby Podcast.